I cheated on my wife in VR. But it was actually her. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, but nothing compares to this one. It's been eating me alive for months now, and I have no one to talk to about it. My friends wouldn't understand, my family would disown me, and I can't face the person I've hurt the most. So here I am, pouring my heart out on Reddit, hoping someone, anyone, will listen to my story and maybe, just maybe, help me figure out how to live with myself after what I've done. To really explain how I got to this point, I need to give you some context. My name's Ethan, and I'm 35. I've been married to my wife, Sarah, for a little over 10 years. We met in college, fell in love fast, and before we knew it, we were living together, talking about starting a family, and planning the rest of our lives. It all felt perfect back then. We were so sure of each other, so sure that what we had would last forever. But, as anyone who's been married for a while will tell you, life has a way of wearing you down. Things change. People change. And over the last couple of years, things between Sarah and me had. Well, they'd gotten stale. We were still living together, but we were more like roommates than husband and wife. We'd stopped going on dates, stopped really talking about anything that mattered. It was like we were just going through the motions, but the spark that had brought us together was gone. I started feeling restless, frustrated. I'm sure Sarah did, too. But instead of talking to her about it, like I should have, I did the most cowardly thing imaginable. I looked for an escape. Not physically, not at first. But emotionally, mentally. I checked out. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into anything that would distract me from the fact that my marriage was slowly crumbling. And then, one day, I found something that seemed harmless at the time. I got into this online virtual reality game. You know the type, big, immersive worlds where you create a character, an avatar, and explore this fantasy realm. It was a way to blow off steam, to step out of my life and into a place where I could be anyone I wanted to be. I didn't think much of it at first. Just a game. Just a distraction. But looking back now, I can see that it was the beginning of the end. In the game, I created this character, Hunter. He was everything I wasn't in real life. Tall, muscular, confident, a real hero type. And yeah, I know how lame that sounds, but it felt good to escape into that role. It felt good to be someone else for a while, someone who wasn't stuck in a rut, someone who didn't feel like a failure at home. I spent hours playing that game, longer and longer stretches as the weeks went by. Sarah noticed, of course. She asked me about it a few times, tried to get me to spend more time with her instead of zoning out in front of the computer. But I brushed her off, telling her it was just a hobby, that it was no different from watching TV or playing any other game. The truth was, I didn't want to face what was really going on between us. It was easier to lose myself in the game than to confront the problems in our marriage. And then I met Lila. Lila was another player in the game, someone I ran into while exploring one of the virtual cities. Her avatar was stunning, long dark hair, striking blue eyes, and this air of mystery about her. We started talking, just casually at first, about quests and game mechanics, the usual stuff. But as the days went on, we started meeting up more and more in the game, and our conversations shifted from the game world to the real world. She told me she was in a relationship too, but that it was complicated, that she felt trapped and unhappy, just like me. It was like we were kindred spirits, both stuck in these lives that weren't what we had imagined. I found myself drawn to her more and more, looking forward to our chats, to the moments we spent together in this virtual world. It wasn't long before our conversations started getting flirtatious, then. More than flirtatious. We'd meet in these romantic spots in the game, hidden waterfalls, secluded beaches, and talk for hours. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. How could I let myself get emotionally involved with someone online? How could I do that to Sarah, even if it was just a game? But the thing is, it didn't feel like just a game. The connection I felt with Lila was real, even if our avatars weren't. I started to fantasize about what it would be like to meet her in real life, to leave my marriage behind and start fresh with someone who seemed to understand me in a way Sarah no longer did. Before long, I was spending every free moment I had in the game with Lila. It became my obsession. Sarah noticed, of course. She grew more distant, more frustrated with me, and I let it happen. I was too wrapped up in my fantasy to care. I told myself that what I was doing wasn't really cheating. It wasn't physical, after all. But deep down, I knew better. I knew I was betraying her trust, even if I wasn't sleeping with someone else. And then, one night, everything came crashing down. Lila and I were on another one of our virtual dates, sitting by this pixelated lake watching the sun set over the horizon. We were talking about life, about how much we wished we could meet in person, about how unhappy we were with the lives we were living outside the game. I was completely wrapped up in the moment, lost in the fantasy. That's when Lila said, "I have to tell you something." I could feel my heart start to race. Was she about to confess that she felt the same way I did? That she was falling for me too? But what she said next sent my whole world spinning. "I'm Sarah," she typed. "It's me. I've been Lila this whole time." I froze. I stared at the screen, reading those words over and over, trying to make sense of them. How could this be possible? Lila was Sarah. My first thought was that this had to be some kind of sick joke. Maybe someone had hacked into her account. Maybe it was some random troll messing with me. But deep down, I knew the truth. The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. The way Lila talked, the things she said about her relationship, they were all too familiar. How had I been so blind? I confronted her, typing out in a panic, "What the hell are you talking about?" And that's when she confirmed it. Sarah had known something was going on for weeks. She'd noticed the way I'd been pulling away, the late nights spent playing the game, the way I avoided her questions. So, she created her own account and started playing the game, too. She created Lila. She watched me, interacted with me, waited to see if I'd take the bait. And I had. I'd fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. She told me she had all the evidence she needed. Every conversation, every flirtatious comment, every confession I'd made about how unhappy I was in our marriage. She had saved it all. She told me she was filing for divorce. I sat there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. This couldn't be happening. This had to be some kind of nightmare. But it wasn't. It was real. I had destroyed my marriage, not with some stranger, but with my own wife. And she had played me the whole time. I logged out of the game, my hands shaking, and went to find her. She was sitting on the couch, calm and composed, as if she had been waiting for this moment. I tried to explain, to apologize, to tell her that it didn't mean anything, that it was just a stupid game, but she didn't want to hear it. She was done with me. Done with the lies, done with the betrayal. She moved out a week later. We've barely spoken since, except through lawyers. I'm living alone now, in a house we once shared, surrounded by memories of a life I threw away for something that wasn't even real. And here's the thing, I know I deserve this. I know I have no one to blame but myself. But that doesn't make it any easier to live with. Every day, I wake up wishing I could go back and do things differently, that I could have been the husband Sarah deserved instead of chasing some fantasy. But I can't. I ruined everything. And now I have to live with the consequences. I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for myself. I don't know. I needed to get this off my chest. I needed to confess, even if it's to a bunch of strangers on the internet. Maybe this will be a warning to someone else out there. Don't take the people you love for granted. Don't let yourself get so caught up in your own dissatisfaction that you forget what really matters. Because once you lose it, once you break that trust, there's no going back.